another. Call this meeting to order. Roll call. Council at Large Boots. Here. At Large Spear. Here. Council Ward number 1 Leeper. Here. Ward number 2 Anderson. Here. And Ward number 3 McNeil.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda. Are there any additions or subtractions? Seeing there are none, is there a motion to approve? McNeil with the first and Boots with the second.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots? Yes. Anderson?
Yes. All right, so now that that has been approved, we'll move to the communications part. And I've actually asked our ambulance director, Brad Ratliff, to address the city council on a topic. So Brad, if you wouldn't mind making your way to the podium.
Good evening. There's been some concerns brought up about our upcoming staffing of high school games that has been coming through on social media. I just wanted to take an opportunity to address some concerns. The concern has been that we might not be doing staffing for upcoming football games. At this point, we've taken the opportunity to sit down at an administrative level and decide that we're going to be doing varsity football games and cross-country meets. We actually had already done the first two prior to waiting for some information to come back to us. I think some of the questions stem potentially back to how our pricing schedule is set up. But one way or the other, we're going to sit down hopefully with the high school administration and address this on a larger level to understand what their future staffing concerns and requests are and how we can facilitate that for them. That's actually all I have.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Ratliff. And now to the unscheduled portion of the communications. If anybody would like to address the council, please make your way to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Larry Hodgson, 210 East 6th Street, Tipton. And I'm going to read this because I want to be clear what I'm saying, and so it doesn't get misquoted. Tonight's agenda has an item related to an increase in water billing to cover future work on the water treatment plant. I'm here to tell you that the $10 per month increase is very unfair to seniors and low-income families. These people, by necessity, are conservative in their use of the water sewer facilities. In my case, I'm already paying $26 per month for the combined water sewer basic charge, plus $5 for a storm water fee. Total $31. While my monthly water and sewer bill usage averages less than $20 a month. This $10 increase would have me pay a total of $61 per month. That would actually be $41 for basic charges and $20 or less for my actual usage. Now, there are a lot of seniors living in this Tipton town, 1 and 2 people in a household. They use a relatively small amount of water, and I don't think it's fair to charge everybody the same $10 flat fee across the board, regardless of the amount of water they use. So I would urge you to increase the charge on the actual usage so this project's cost is more fairly distributed among our residents and commercial users. If you still desire to start accumulating funds for the project, you could raise that cost now and start banking the funds. On another matter, I have yet to see a completed feasibility study on the gas line project to the rural development. Surely this decision was not made without a complete feasibility study which listed all projected costs and returns. I would like to see the cost of all the gas line, gas pipe, fittings, valves, meters, as well as the cost of swick boring, the hours of city labor to include the 2 summer helpers who mowed the 2 miles of ditches, the equipment and fuel costs involved. This project is using public money collected from the residents of Tipton through an increased basic gas charge. If this council expects to retain any degree of credibility, it would be helpful to fully inform the residents about this project.
Larry, I just had one question for you. When you said you were going to read this so you weren't misquoted, who was that directed at?
I was directed to you and the council.
Because you provided me with a copy of your remarks, so it'd be hard for me to misquote you from,
That's correct, and that's why I did that.
if that was directed at me, I've already got his remarks.
But I wanted the council to make sure that they had a clear hearing of what I expected to say.
But then you went off of your remarks also.
Yeah, very slightly.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, so there's anybody else? Yeah, sure.
Chris Law, 1404 Old Muscatine. Although I do not live inside the defined city limits, I am living inside the district defined for the Tipton Ambulance Service. I am the one that brought to light the issue on social media. In speaking with several members of the ambulance service in anonymity for fear of repercussions, I guess my concern is the members have recently, within the last 5 years, started getting paid to go to football games. Director Becker, Mr. Ratliff's predecessor, was the one that started doing that. Up until then, they had never been paid. It was strictly voluntary service. The only reason Director Becker at that time decided to start doing that was there was extra money in the budget. He felt that them just providing their time wasn't enough of a thank you for them doing that. And that's why he decided to start paying them. In talking with several members inside the community and inside the school district, I have come to learn that the current director had been wanting to charge as much as $150 per hour for the ambulance being on site at football games. I know in talking with several members of the ambulance service, again in anonymity, that they would be willing to do that as a strictly voluntary, unpaid service to their community. Because that's what this service is. It is a community service. It's not a money-making proposition. It's there to provide help and assistance to anybody that needs it at any time, day or night. And that's the way that a majority, I feel, of the members of that service feel. So I guess I would just strongly urge the director to not try and charge the school a penny, because I feel that that is contradicting the standards and more or less the mission statement of the Tipton Ambulance Service. Because you're not here to make money off of people being sick, needing help, even needing a Band-Aid for a scrape off of falling on rocks. You're here to help people, to make them better, to give them the service that they need and desire. So
But
I guess that's...
Why do they want anonymity if they want to volunteer and not be paid? I mean, wouldn't they have to tell us that? Wouldn't the ones who want to strictly volunteer have to come forward and say who they are?
They would, but frankly, they feel that there could be repercussions
For not taking pay?
for speaking up. I've also learned that in their ambulance meetings, it has been run, I will use the term unprofessionally. It is strictly show up, do your continuing education credit skills, and you leave when you're done. There is no discussion on budgets, no discussion on who can fill in any open spots or anything like that. It's just you show up, do your skills, and you leave. I mean, I understand that everybody has families, prior commitments and stuff like that. And I completely and utterly respect every single person that is on that service. I mean, they'll wake up in the middle of the night in a blizzard or torrential downpours like we've been having for the last week and a half to go out and help somebody that's in need. But I guess they're more or less afraid of being singled out, and they don't want that to happen. And that's why they have confided in me to speak out.
As far as the charge, it is my understanding that the city has an ordinance that sets those rates. So
Well, I
without specific council action,
okay.
the hands are tied by the ambulance.
Well, I know in the past when Bernie Witry, Don Vilhauer, and Tom Mackey were the directors of the Tipton Ambulance Service, they did not charge the school for attending cross-country, football, or any sport activities in which the Tipton Ambulance Service was there to provide any medical attention. And even in the first maybe year that Director Becker was in charge, it was the same way. No charge, it was community service, but it was only when there was a little extra money in the budget that Director Becker decided, hey, you guys do so much for this service and for this community, I would like to give you a little extra thank you. And that is the reason that the members were started to be paid for attending high school events, or just sports events and anything else in particular.
Well, I think Brad has something to pursue with the volunteers as to where they stand on their pay or other things. I mean, it's one of those things where ultimately he and they have to get together and figure out what they're going to do and what the volunteers want to be paid, or if they want to be paid. How many of them, who it is. I mean, I can understand you're coming up and representing them through this stage, but ultimately, they're going to have to get together.
Yeah. And also one other thing, I've always just been kind of curious. Is there, not necessarily a law, but any kind of an ordinance that requires any head of a, like either police, fire, or EMS to live within, say, like a 5-mile radius?
No.
Okay, because I know that like on the EMS service, there is kind of that, I don't know if it's a written,
The on-call personnel have to be.
yeah, okay.
It's more like a response time.
Yeah.
Because I know with the previous police chief, that was kind of a big issue at times. And so I was just curious on that, if it translated to the EMS side as well.
All right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan.
I would just like to make a comment that I do agree with Chris that it is a great community service that we've offered. It's just come to my attention, though, that the school does pay for someone to be there at the football games. Are you aware of that? There's a
From
paid
all
service
I've
there.
been aware of is that they are admitted free of charge and given free meals.
Well, but they retain someone to also do that besides the ambulance. The ambulance
Yes,
crew
the
gets free
school
meals, yes,
does hire athletic trainers
to be at all the
to
games
be
in the
at football
country.
games and that stuff. But I know in attending several football games over the past few years, that, to be honest, an athletic trainer is not gonna be able to cover every single thing. There was, in my initial social media post, some discussion with, I believe his name is Scott Thoma, who is an licensed athletic trainer, that they are certified and trained to cover just about everything. But to be honest, if, let's say, Councilperson Anderson's granddaughter falls on a rock while playing with her friends, she feels she needs a Band-Aid. To be honest, you're not gonna go to the athletic trainer to get a Band-Aid. Seeing that ambulance down there by that food stamp every weekend at the home football games, that's the first place you're gonna go.
Well, I think that what the council has decided is they would like to come to the table with the school and work something out.
I just feel that being as though it is a voluntary service, that just being there on call, and to be honest, the people that go to the football games are not the ones on call. Sometimes one or two of the members are, but most of the times they are not. There are people that could have other plans, but they decide, hey, we're gonna be the ones that are gonna be at the football game that night, or in the past, at the races that night. And at the races, they were paid to be out there, along with free admission and that stuff. But the people that are willing to go to the football games, I believe, and from what I've heard, are willing to do that on a voluntary level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you much, Mr. Slaughter. Anyone else? Since there are none, we'll close that portion of the oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Hey, my name is Judy Artser, and I live at 707 West 9th Street, number 15. And I just want to voice my opinion. I was on the ambulance service for over 20 years. And I know things have changed, because now people are putting money before community service. We would go down there and sit at the football field, at the track, anything that this community had, and we did not get paid, and we never complained, because that was just who we are. When you're an EMT, you voluntarily take that, not only responding to accidents, responding to calls or anything like that, you're also doing community service. And I think somewhere along the line, this community service thing has gotten kind of down on the bottom. What about if the ambulance service is in a parade? Are they gonna charge the city so much an hour? It just seems to me that all of us past EMTs worked really hard to get the building and the service where it's at today. And the way it's headed, I am so afraid that if we don't back down a little bit and take a good look at what we have, and it is a marvelous service. And if I was 20 years younger, I'd be on it. but it's headed, in my personal opinion, in the wrong direction. You guys have got to understand that this community needs this service. And if you put too many restrictions on it, you're not gonna have a service. I had to wait 45 minutes because Adam 7 and Adam 8 weren't responding for someone to come to my home. 45 minutes. I have a scanner. One lady had to wait an hour. An older lady had to wait an hour, and that's what's gonna happen. So you guys have got to realize where this community is coming from. That's just my personal opinion.
Thanks, Judy.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
All right, so we will close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda, which can be enacted with one motion, and they are the city council minutes from August 20th, library minutes from July 31st, the August library director's report, liquor license renewal for Me Tierra, and the claims list. Is there anything that needs to be pulled out? Excuse me, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Anderson with the first and Spear with the second.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right, so now moving on to old business, which the first one is the ADA compliant entrance to the commercial property at 514 Cedar Street. Ms. Twing? Oh, yeah, there was an old, no, you can keep going. We put it on the table, so we have to make a motion to take it off the table. Boots with the first, and McNeil with the second.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Twing, Brian?
I sent all of you an email with some pictures and a brief description of the project that I hope either answered questions or brought some more clarifying questions to mind. I would like to hear your thoughts.
Does anybody want to ask any more questions for clarity or any other discussion?
Maybe for the benefit of the audience, you could summarize what you're proposing. I think it came down at the end of your email to a proposal.
All right. I am asking for permission to build an ADA ramp alongside my building at 514 Cedar Street. Currently, I own about a foot south of the building. The ramp would need to extend 4 foot south of the building. This involves a grand total of 143 square foot that I would need to use that belongs to the city. I did a little bit of looking into vacation procedures and easement procedures. They seem to be involving bigger pieces like whole widths of alleys, whole lengths of alleys, and not just a little side piece of one business worth of alley. I outlined the neighbors to this property and the alley and showed that there is no one else that would have a benefit from owning this property or having access to this property except for mine. The change in taxes, if we did a formal assignment to me, are going to be very, very minimal, if anything at all. The entire property right now this year was $87, which I assume that adding this square footage would mean very, very little. At present, this strip of land, which would be 46 foot long, with 5 foot of that 46, 5 feet wide, and the rest of that 46 foot long, 4 foot wide to the building between the building and alley. This strip of land at present, in a practical sense, is unusable by the city. It has been a garden of sorts where nobody could walk on it before. So I'm actually opening up usage of this little strip to get into my building. I respectfully ask the council to grant me permission to build my ramp on this alley. Are there other questions?
Brian, would you explain what our attorneys, how they addressed it?
Well, you've covered really the two main options that I know of. That's doing it by easement or vacating it. The one that would seem, of the two, that would seem to fit the best would be vacating it. Because, as you say, if the city isn't using it, if it wouldn't benefit any other owner, that's more of a case for vacating it. But whether it's a whole alley or a right-of-way, I'm not aware that the process is different when it comes to a small area like what we're dealing with here. I think at the end of your email, your proposition was for the city to forego either vacating or creating an easement.
Correct.
Just letting you build on the alley for that part of it that you would need.
That is what I'm asking, yes.
I didn't really throw that scenario at the attorney. I mean, typically you try to avoid structures crossing the property line. For example, I mentioned to Tim earlier, when I've seen cases of it, it's often involved like an undeveloped alley or a pole line easement where somebody has a backyard shed
Okay.
and they want to put it back just a bit farther. And what you could end up with is, since they all tend to like to have them line up, you could have requests a number of times. Now, this isn't exactly like that, but I can see people saying to the council, well, I know you allow the use of public property for this purpose, will you consider mine? And then we'll have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. The other option that I thought about, I think I suggested to the attorney a while back, and I didn't get an answer on it, and then I thought about it again, was the idea of a lease. You know, I emailed the question, you know, could there be a lease based on the idea of an X by Y number of feet of the northwest corner of that particular alley? And I tried emailing the two attorneys that we were working with back and forth on it. And I haven't gotten an answer yet as of when I left for to come here. I guess I'm seeing it as kind of a long shot, but it is a question that I asked that hasn't been answered yet. But I know on the proposition, you know, can or should you let somebody build something on city property? I have a feeling the attorney would advise no. But if the council wanted to override that advice, they could, but then it's, you know, more of a policy issue that as to whether or not they think it's the right thing to do. I suppose they would also need some sort of hold harmless if any accident happens, since it would be city property. The city would want to be implicated in somebody falling off or getting hurt or something like that.
And my insurance agent, through an email, answered that all of my liability policy will extend no matter what property that ramp is on, but we did not address the question of would somebody name you in a lawsuit.
Which is always possible.
No matter what. I hadn't been thinking about if somebody else off the alley would use this as a stepping stone to ask for their own. I was only thinking that on this alley, there's nobody else who would benefit from this particular piece of land. And the other businesses there would, I don't see in their form of business that they would ask for anything similar to this in that alley.
Does anybody have any thoughts or questions?
Yes, Laura, is the flight of stairs going up there, is that partially on city property already?
Correct.
Okay, and also the access to the basement?
Correct. I went to the GIS guy over at the county building, and his records are for the whole block askew. It shows the property line running through the middle of my room there in that building. I don't know what steps he would need to correct that, but I know that entire block is off. Again, it would open up another building in downtown for business that could accommodate disabled people. It's actually adding square footage, useful square footage to the alley that people would walk on this because it's not going to extend out as far as those flowers did. And it will look neater.
Does anybody want to make a motion one way or the other?
I just have a question. All right. Does this, in order for us to reduce that 2 feet or whatever it is, does that have to be surveyed first?
To do it
And who
properly.
pays for the survey?
Well, in cases where a vacated piece of property, if it doesn't benefit the city in doing it, if it benefits the person making the request, it's been the person making the request. I mean, I've seen cities go half and half on surveys when they have an interest in the outcome of the survey. But if it is completely in the interest of the other party, the city usually says all related expenses are up to that person.
In what way might the survey's results change any of what we do?
Well, I took it that Ross was talking in terms of either vacating or creating an easement.
Have to be one or the other.
Would there be a result of the survey that would cause us not to complete this in any way? I can't imagine.
Oh, you mean if you paid for a survey and the council the council would have to have a public hearing ultimately. People could come in and protest. Is your question, if people protest and the council says, hey, we're gonna listen to them and deny it, would you be out the money for the survey?
No, I'm not concerned about the money for the survey, just that if people contest it, are you going to deny it?
It depends on what they, I mean, you can't say where you'll end up before the public hearing. I mean, somebody may come in with a point that nobody's ever considered, and that might change the way people think.
We still haven't received any information back from the attorney, the city attorney's,
Not on-
he has this problem.
Not on the idea of a lease. You know, I mean, they're proposing we either do it by vacating or doing an easement. And the one that I heard from the most seemed to like the idea of an easement more, though I don't know that it's,
And an
Here, here,
easement would
there.
still allow her to build something on it.
yeah, I think the idea that he had of an easement, unlike vacating it, if you vacate it, it's that person's from now on. If you had an easement, you could put in reverters. For example, if the ramp was removed and not replaced, the city of a future time could exercise a reverter to put it back with the alley property. That would be one example. But vacating it, it's gone for good.
What's involved in doing easement? Still gotta have it surveyed, all the legal stuff. Willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that, I'm just anxious to get it going. Would there be a possibility of going through with the process and yet allowing me to start
Start with.
putting the ramp in?
I didn't think so until the survey's done.
Like the easement idea?
Even if there is an easement, there still have to be a survey done. Okay.
A motion for the easement?
With permission to start the work right away or not?
I don't think we can.
Okay.
All right, so there's been a motion on the table to approve this pending, the approval of an easement pending the results of the survey.
What was the word?
Approval of an easement while using the results of the survey for that easement. With
Subject to
The survey.
public process as required by the law.
with the property owner paying the expenses for the survey.
All right. It should be understood that it's all subject to the necessary public process that we have to follow.
All right, all of those words.
I will second all of those words.
McNeil with the first and Spear with the second.
Let me get instructions from the attorney as to exactly how they see it laying out before you go too much farther. I'll try to get that in the next day or so.
Okay.
Amy?
Do you still want to check on the lease?
I guess I'm curious. I'm curious to see what they say, just in case it deals some card we don't know about. I mean, if it does open something up, I'll bring it back to the council and let you know too.
McNeil?
Yes.
Oops?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I say Anderson?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I'm not.
Thank you, Ms. Twing. All right, so it's number 2, which is the discussion of possible action reviewing the new sewer rate ordinance. Brian?
Well, I guess I first want to make clear that this isn't meant to be a first reading. It's your review of the draft to see if it captures what you basically agreed to the night that we have the various presentations, and your opinion to go ahead with this was based on some options that Maggie Berger from Spear Financial presented. Just to go into it a bit. The draft of the ordinance leaves the basic charge and the rate and the usage rate unchanged. However, it establishes 2 special rates that are specifically related to the immediate wastewater treatment project. The sewer rate ordinance allows the council to create special rates to deal with special situations. Such special rates can be altered by council resolution. For example, if a future council feels that one of the special rates is either too high or too low for a given fiscal year, the council can pass a resolution to change the rate. The revenue provided by the proposed special rates would be specifically set aside for the repayment of annual debt on the loan that finances this project. The first special rate is connected to the overall user rate. The first 2 years would not see an increase in the use rate, but effective on July 1, 2021, there would be small annual increases based on the usage rate that would reoccur every July 1 until the loan is repaid. In most years, the annual increase would be 1%. The second special rate is the flat monthly rate. Effective in this draft, effective January 1 of 2019, there would be a new monthly charge of $10 per month per customer account. The charge is intended to stay at $10 per month throughout the life of the loan, which will not be repaid until the current end date is 2040. At your August 13th meeting, the council indicated that you'd prefer to start the special rate for the $10 per month sooner rather than later to build up some of the necessary funds for the future project. And in doing so, you hope that we can lower the amount of our loan when the time comes. That's the reason why the effective date of January 1, 2019 was proposed. The revenue from the 2 special rates would be used in concert with current wastewater utility funds that are being used on an existing wastewater debt. Those funds will be freed up by the end of fiscal year 23-24. I put in here, please note the current usage rate of $3.86 per 100 cubic feet of water used per month is separate from the 2 proposed special rates. It can be adjusted on its own due to the future needs of the wastewater utilities operating budget. Again, I'm asking for input on whether this draft captures the council's intent for this ordinance. And if not, we can work on it more. And then I ended by saying, though there aren't really any good alternatives for financing this future debt, I wanted to check with you on whether you'd like to hold a public hearing on the proposed ordinance to take public input on the rates, or see if there are any alternative ideas. Or if you prefer, we can forego a public hearing and use the next available council meeting to do a first reading of the ordinance.
In favor of the public?
Now, remember, in the rate, most of the funds needed for the debt is generated by the $10 per month. If part of it is switched to use in order to make up for what it loses on the $10 a month, it would greatly increase the user rate. We can have some scenarios run. Maybe Melissa and I and Maggie Berger can get together on the effects of doing some things differently. She did some of those, sorry, I'm losing my voice. she did some of those variations at that meeting where she appeared, but we can go over those again. But again, with this much debt on a $5+ million project, that the source of repayment is from the wastewater utility, it's gonna be difficult. I mean, it's gonna be difficult to find a way that everybody feels is fair when you're dealing with that much debt. I would ask that we consider giving us some time to put some scenarios together before this hearing is set. So I was, maybe if we could put those together and then come to your next meeting on the 17th to set it for a date in October, then we could put a hearing notice in the paper, for example, if that's acceptable.
So is that all the action needed?
Yes.
Just that guidance?
Well, yeah, because I was thinking about the public hearing, but I'll come back to another meeting to read the motion if there.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Now to discussion of possible action concerning a garbage truck and the automated helping hand. Clay, Steve Clay?
It's time for a new garbage truck.
We know that.
We've kind of done a lot of research. This truck is very similar to the first one that we had with a little different arm. The packing system of that first truck was, we never had a problem with it in the life of the truck. The arm, we had a few quirks until we got them worked out. This is a new arm. It's the same truck, basically, smaller version. Cedar Rapids just bought 5 of them, so there's a lot of confidence in the market. It does take about 10 months to get one, so that's why we're here now. I'd like to retain our old truck so we can recoup some benefit from all the money we've spent on it. Use it as a backup truck, then we kind of get out of the mess we've been in with this truck. And in the busy seasons, we'll have a backup truck to do Thanksgiving, Christmas, when things are really hectic. And we can always sell it down the road, but I think we're gonna find the advantage of keeping it. The trade-in, you don't even wanna know what they'll offer you. It's not enough. So the way our best plan is to keep it and utilize it.
All right. Any questions for Clay?
Trustee Gibson.
Is there a motion on this? Motion to approve?
Yes.
Anderson with the first, Leeper with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Clay. And the fourth one for old business, which is a discussion of possible action for purchasing a transformer for the industrial park. What?
I'll find it. With the recent addition to Cedar Poly, we're going to need to buy another transformer. What we've decided to do is we're going to add another 1500 kVA transformer right next to the one that's already there. So, and I only have one quote, and the reason being is the spare that we have now is an ERMCO transformer. I know it will fit on the basement, the pad that it sits on, for either building. And so if there's not a problem with that, if we ever have to replace one of them because it burns up or something, but the chances of that are slim and none. But it's been nice, it'd be nice to have the backup, and they would like to know that we do have a backup for them. When I talked to Resco, they said 10% increase would cover any of the cost increases in the last year since I purchased that other one, when we had to change it out because the original one was leaking. So it'd be about $19,800 without tax. Tax would be $1,386. So you're looking at about $21,200, somewhere in that ballpark.
We have to pay tax.
So I can pencil that real quick.
Utility does the city, does the utility.
Yeah, you're looking at $21,860 total by the time you put the tax on there.
All right.
This was not a budgeted item, but it'll be a pass-through cost because they'll be paying for it.
All right. Any questions for Floyd? Is there a motion? Boots with the first and Leeper with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
But you want to mention your other,
Oh, for Cedar Poly,
yeah, that you were going to give the council a heads up on.
Is it another expansion?
okay, with the expansion going on out there, the wire size is not big enough, as I discussed earlier. We've come up with a plan, how we're gonna feed it. I'm still waiting for prices on the wire, which I thought I would have it by this council meeting, and I still don't have it. To get us an idea of what it's gonna cost, but we're gonna take a different route. We're gonna go along the north and east side of CDS. We're gonna pick up that easement that's 30-foot wide between the sheriff's office and CDS and go back through there. We've already got electric, water, sewer, storm sewer, and some other things running back there. And we'll need another transformer basement for this job as well. And I talked to them, that's the thing that you wanted me to get to, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Was I need a transformer basement for this job, and I also need one for Tipton Structural. And the price for the two basements I'm gonna need, and these are not in the budget, is $2,272.60. I didn't have it ready for the council because I didn't get all that stuff back until today. Kind of want to get a consensus if it was okay to order it, and then I'll have it on the agenda for formal approval at the next meeting. These are things that just come up every year, and I try to plan for a little bit, but this year's been really busy, so. I see some head shaking, yes.
I think that's the guidance.
Okay. Brian and I talked about it earlier today, and so, but anyway, okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. Next is discussion of possible action concerning the pay estimate number 3 for BWC on Lemon Street. Oh, wait, what? Oh, yeah, you're right, I totally skipped over that. Which is possible action concerning an establishment of an urban revitalization area within the city.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I wanted to bring to the council's attention another type of economic development tool that's often used but not used as often as TIF. TIF is also called urban renewal. This is called urban revitalization, which has to do with tax exemption or tax abatement. Both tools are used to hopefully create a better environment for economic development. Just to talk briefly about the difference between TIF and tax exemption. With TIF, the property owner pays his or her taxes on whatever taxable improvements are constructed. However, the part of the taxes paid on the new improvements is separated from the taxes paid on the property before the improvements were made. The taxes paid on the new improvements are redirected to the city to pay for debt or other obligations such as rebate agreements. With tax exemption, or also called tax abatement. Property taxes on the new taxable improvements are either phased in or they aren't paid at all for a designated number of years. The item on the agenda concerns, again, urban revitalization. Again, the slang for that is tax abatement. The Iowa Code calls it urban revitalization or tax exemption. Urban revitalization is typically used in situations where public infrastructure, street, water, sewer, are already in place. For example, it is often used on existing property or infill lots. TIF, on the other hand, especially for housing projects, is used typically in places where public infrastructure doesn't exist yet. So it's a way of helping to fund that. Tipton already has an ordinance that provides a tax exemption benefit to industrial or warehousing properties that construct new taxable improvements. For example, if an existing industrial business constructs an addition, the taxes on the new improvements would have an exemption schedule of 75% in the first year, 60% in the second, 45% in the third, 30% in the fourth, 15% in the fifth. And that schedule is standard. All the towns that offer that for industrial use that same schedule because the Iowa Code mandates it. Next page. What I would like to propose is that either with a committee such as the Finance Committee or with the council in a work session such as, for example, your next meeting, if we could start it at 5, I'd like to do a little bit more detail on what the programs are, because along with industrial, you can also have tax exemption for residential projects, multi-residential projects, and commercial projects. There are different options on what an incentive could be. And so there are some choices that would be made. If the council wants to pursue this and make some of those choices, then we would bring in John Danos, our bond attorney, is also our TIF attorney, and he also deals with this. They would draft an urban revitalization plan, and then we would hold a public hearing on it. As I mentioned in the write-up, though, even more complicated than TIF is urban revitalization to set it up. Once the plan is in place, they estimate that it takes at least 12 weeks because of all the public process that's involved. For example, you have to mail out a hearing notice to everybody in the proposed urban revitalization area. So some cities make their entire city limits an urban revitalization area. If we did that, we would send a mailing out to all property owners to tell them about this public hearing. And the public hearing notice needs to give them a 30-day notice. And then once you have that hearing, the law says a petition can trigger a second public hearing 30 more days out. So while that petition doesn't happen very often, they always advise you to wait because it might show up. So it's a long process and there's a lot of detail to it, but it would be one more incentive for people in existing homes, people who want to build a new home, such as on an infill lot. It could aid in commercial development, especially in areas where if we do it more town-wide, it could especially offer a benefit to commercial businesses that aren't in a TIF district by giving them an option. So it's something that I think we need to spend a little bit more time on in order for you to make some choices. And then if the work session is at your next meeting, I would put a motion in the actual agenda of the regular meeting where you can act on what you decide to do at the work session. So if it could work, either for the meeting on September 17th or the next one, I think it's October 1st, I'm wondering if you'd like to start at 5 o'clock, for example, if that works, if we either. Does one or the other work better? I mean, I would rather do the sooner the better if the 17th works.
Yep, works for me.
Okay.
Pam, Dean?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah. Just checking.
Yeah.
All right, 5 PM on the 17th.
At that meeting, would you have some kind of outline of where that would be?
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean the choices?
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh. All right, so now moving on to the payment. The approval of the pay estimate number 3 for BWC excavating.
That's in the amount of $87,682.85. That's after retainage of $4,614.89 is withheld. And it looked like the major areas in this pay estimate were for topsoil, traffic control, connection to existing sewer pipe, and utility conduit installation.
Do they have a time frame on this project when they're planned to be done?
It was October, wasn't it originally, for Lemon Street?
It was like the last week of October.
What day was this? Last Wednesday? Yeah, and the deadline is the 26th to the 28th of October. And the engineers have asked BWC to provide their plan moving forward, how they're going to get done before that deadline. Streb is doing the concrete. 26th. They'll pour a whole width, so once they have it prepped for Streb won't take long to finish it.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions concerning the payment? Is there a motion? Boots with the first and McNeil with the second?
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
All right, so the next one, which is the discussion of possible action concerning a drip reimbursement request for 316 Cedar Street. Linda?
The commission at their last meeting approved the drip application that Dorina, doing business as Touch a Class. She had completed the project. Actually, she went over the original amount by over $800 that she submitted. Of course, that doesn't change the amount of the grant. So reimbursement would be $5,161, and that also was approved by the commission for me to bring that forward to you tonight.
All right, any questions for Linda? Is there a motion? Leeper with the first and Anderson with the second? Oh, sorry, Spear with the second?
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
All right, so that,
Thank you. It looks very nice if you haven't noticed that she did a really nice job.
yes. All right, next, Linda, is discussion of possible action concerning the approval of art downtown and at the park.
Yes. For several months, I have been working with Christine Booby to do some art downtown. This is a really popular thing that's going across our country. And, you know, I really like thinking outside of the box. I like getting families downtown When we bring families downtown, we eat, we shop, we do all kinds of things. So Christine and I went around for first phase here to look at maybe a few things that are little eyesores that stick out, maybe not necessarily eyesore, but stick out a little bit. And with her creative mind, she came up with some different things that she could paint. Christina is from Tipton. She probably is one of the artists that I've ever encountered that is so talented. And I submitted some of those drawings to you. She actually would, and on her own time, do one or two of these projects and not charge us for it. And that's how committed she is to our community, and that's how committed she is to bringing something to our community that is so unique. This is not in Cedar County. Nobody in Cedar County has this. We have murals and things like that, but we don't have this downtown art. And so I am just asking permission that we can start this project. This, I have a line item, it's CD, or community development projects. I have a budget line for this. Every year I try to do different things, and I would really appreciate if you would consider this and allow this project to begin. I have talked to Floyd about the electrical covers, and we know that from the beginning we can't paint over anything that says warning or instructions. I've talked to Steve about in the alley in between Citizens Bank and Keller's, there's a manhole, and she would paint a jellyfish, and the jellyfish would be particular paints. It would not be on sidewalks, it's not, or the street there. It's just trying to get families down and just really getting things to buzz. So there are about 5 projects this round. Every year, what I would want her to do, and I would present to you again, is we would touch up the things that maybe winter was a little hard on, and then we would look at other projects that we could add to, like getting down to the park, doing more projects downtown. I've talked to several business owners about this, so they would not be in the dark. They are very excited. Those that I talked to, it would be mainly by them at this particular time, extremely excited about this because they also know the benefits that this would bring to our community. So again, we're stepping out of the box just a little bit to make Tipton a little more unique. And I'm hoping that you will agree with this project and perceive me to move ahead.
All right. Any questions or comments for Linda? Is there a motion? Lieber with the first and Boots with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
If I could do a cartwheel, I would do it right now. Thank you very much.
I'll pay $5 to see it. How much?
All right, so now I'll move on to number 5, which is discussion of possible action concerning the possible CDBG grant application for owner-occupied housing rehab. Right?
Yeah, those initials stand for Community Development Block Grant. They're, for the most part, there are 2 programs. There are others, but the 2 main ones are for public infrastructure and then for housing such as this. I was talking to Mark Snyder at ECIA, the Council of Governments in Dubuque. We're in their territory, about grant possibilities, and this is the one that I wanted to bring to your attention first. In order to apply or qualify for CDBG, you have to have a population that is at least 51% low to moderate income. And that could be either by the last census showing that the entire city is at least that. It can be by trying to find a target area that you define that has at least 200 houses in it, and then you'd survey that. And in both cases, and you could also survey the entire town, but in the target area, whenever you do a survey for these income you have to have a high response rate. It's often hard to get. The other possibility is the one that we're looking at here in this proposal, and that is if the census doesn't identify your whole city as at least 51%, if it's divided into census tracts, if a census tract is at least 51%, that qualifies. We have 4 census tracts in Tipton. 3 of the 4 are in the high 38, 39% range. 1 is just shy of 60% low to moderate income. I don't know why this area is so different, but the census says it is, and so it's qualified. And that basically is the northwest quadrant of the city, as shown in the map that we put in your packet. I asked Mark a number of questions. The answers are in the write-up that I made, but just to summarize them, we can apply for 6 owner-occupied rehab projects in a target area, whether it's the whole city or just a defined area. The entire grant application would be for $231,000. I asked if the city would have to provide matching funds. When I was involved with this before, you often had to. And he said it's not emphasized as much as it used to be, but it's something worth thinking about. You know, it might be one more thing that gets them to look at your application over another town that might not add matching funds. Where I was before, in some years, $10,000 was offered. In the very last year, where an award was made, $25,000 was offered. And there are some years where nothing was offered. But it does help the odds, I think, a little bit if something is offered. I asked what the grant could be used for. He said it could be used for radon mitigation if needed, but optional to the owner, addressing lead-based paint hazards, electrical issues, smoke detector installations. Beyond those, the program is to attempt to address the most urgently needed work in the house. That could be siding, roofing, doors and windows, insulation, HVAC, plumbing, etc. Although the state started looking at an indication of community interest by having pre-applications required with the application for the grant. And I also put in a draft of the pre-application forms. For 6 homes, he said that the state would like to see at least 12 pre-applications. So if the council agrees to go forward with this, I would ask ECIA what they think the proper timing would be in the proper, or at least in their experience, the most effective way of getting the information about the pre-application process out. He said that last year, this has a once-a-year deadline. Last year it was in May. He expects it to be May again. So there is some time. I guess for a possible motion, it would be to hire ECIA as our grant writer and authorize the 2 environmental reviews that he offered to do for $2,000. And when I say 2 environmental reviews, we were talking about more than one type of block grant. I want to talk about the other type at the next meeting. But that's for infrastructure. Track 2 also had areas where the I&I study identified. So we have the possibility of doing a block grant application in track 2 because it's automatically qualified to do manhole repair, rehabilitation, also the lining of the sewer lines. So that's a possible grant. The other one is for the wastewater treatment plant project, the Sager project. Now, in that one, we'd be eligible to apply for up to $600,000. But we would have to do a community-wide survey. It would need at least, I think it was 420, we would need 420 surveys to go out, and we would have to need a high number of those to come back. The state is different on how they used to be. When I last did a survey, they're more detailed on follow-ups. The reason why I want to ask for some time on the next agenda to talk more about these in particular is if we try to do a grant application for the Sager, we won't be able to do a survey that big and with that much detail with just our office staff alone. It would be most helpful if we could find a way to get the word out that help from a community group, a fraternal organization, a group of volunteers would be instrumental in trying to get the necessary survey response for it to be qualified for the state to consider. Now, in the end, even if we get the help, we may not get the 51%, but it may be worth a try. You know, a lot of times the survey depends on who gets it, who answers it, that type of thing. So more on that at your next meeting. For this meeting, I wanted to propose that we go ahead with getting the block grant application ready for housing rehab for the 6 houses in Track 2 by hiring ECIA to do the grant and then doing the twofer that he offered on environmental reviews.
So,
Lieber with the first,
Second.
and Boots with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right, there you go. The next one, which is discussion and possible action concerning the acceptance of Marv Miller's letter of resignation as the zoning administrator. We'll all have that letter in our packet.
And this is, it's not only a letter of resignation, I think it's an opportunity just to recognize his service. He was a zoning administrator for quite a number of years. And I know from having experience with zoning, it's often a tough job, and it's especially tough, I imagine, on a person who's basically a volunteer. So I didn't work with Marv for a long time, but I found him to be very helpful, very nice to me, and I just wanted to have the chance for the council to consider making whatever comments you'd like to make in light of his resignation.
I appreciate all he's done and all the years of service that he gave.
He's a good ambassador for the city.
He's also a good man.
Yes, he is.
Known Marvin since back in the 70s, and you won't find anybody with more integrity than that man. Good man.
I'm just staying in his driveway down the street.
Yes, you definitely helped out a lot with the zoning, and I think, yeah, we all appreciate all the years that he put in for the city. So with that, is there a motion to accept his resignation?
What if we said that?
Yeah, does he have to stay on? Lieber with the first,
Second.
and Spear with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yeah.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right, so it's number 7, which is a one-time water and sewer bill exemption on 401 East Street. Did I say that right? East First, sorry, yeah, East First Street. Is there any questions on this?
What was, do you think that was just a misread or something?
No, he had some kind of leak.
Oh, okay, so, but he
And then
didn't
it-
say he fixed it.
he didn't know,
What it was?
yeah, that then the next month's consumption was,
Way down.
one of his leaky toilet that he couldn't hear and fix himself, I don't know.
All right, is there a motion?
So,
Boots with first,
second.
and Spear with second.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
All right, so that concludes that portion of the meeting. I will go down to reports. I don't have anything to report this time. The council has a report that's an update on the kiosk project.
Yes, we do. We do have a handout and a picture, that I don't think there was enough copies for everyone. I will leave my copy here for anyone who would like to look at it. If you haven't been by the cemetery, it is pretty much built. The roof isn't on yet, but it will look like this. And the cemetery committee actually met with the Masonic Lodge last night to ask for donations. We're hoping to receive an amount that will cover the cost of the kiosk that is being built. So far, we have received $15,000 towards it. The kiosk will have an alphabetical listing of all those interred, along with a map that will help people find their loved ones. The committee is also hoping to solicit donations from the public for other projects that are long overdue. We understand these projects will require a larger sum of money, but we would have an account that we could set up so that the funds would be used as we acquired enough to do another project. We're wanting to improve the streets out there, which they badly need. And it is not even something I would consider going to the council to ask them to repair the streets out there when we're barely maintaining the ones here. We would like to build a bunker.
Time for rebuttal.
Not now.
No, nothing intended here. We would like to build a bunker to hold the dirt between the diggings, and apparently we're getting more dirt piled in, and this is from when the headstone fellas come in and they dig it up and they take it over and throw it in the draw that we have finally just cleaned up. So we'd like a bunker to hold all of that stuff in the meantime. And we'd also like to purchase a few more trees to line the Cedar Valley Road. Mr. Nash is pretty adamant about no more trees inside the cemetery with the roots uprooting headstones and streets, and he has a valid point. So, our committee, and I don't know if you all know, but it's Maureen Pack and Les Boots and myself, and we're pretty excited about, this was a jump start for us to try and make it nicer out there. That's all we can do for our loved ones. Thank you.
All right.
A nice article would be nice too. Like this picture on the front page.
Thanks for all your
No
work.
pressure. Thank you.
All right, so down to committee reports. City manager
Did
report.
you get one of these too?
I just would like to request that Tim and Pam, they're on one of our committees, if they would hang around after the meeting.
All right. And then to department heads, we got Steve up first with the schedule.
I'm gonna try to finish up with two or three positive things. DOT resurfacing project downtown, I don't know if the council is aware of that. We really weren't until about a week or two ago. In July, the DOT let a contract to Cedar Falls Construction to do some patchwork downtown, a 2-inch mill and fill back with asphalt to try to get us through for the next couple of years until the big project comes around. I went to a pre-construction meeting this morning down in Davenport. The guy's gonna start by the 17th of September, maybe even as early as a week from today. There's gonna be 16 to 1,700 feet, anywhere from 6.5 feet wide to 12 feet wide. And you've seen probably, if you're noticing, a lot of paint marks on Cedar Street, and that's what they're gonna be doing. The construction guy today said it would probably, they have 20 days to do it, but he thought they could get it done in 2 weeks, 10 days. There will be pilot car possibly and flaggers. They'll only, of course, do one lane at a time. But there'll be a little inconvenience there, but I think the results will be nice. Get us through a couple more years. So, that, and then consulting arborist is working with the DNR, stopped in today and he's doing, we did a tree inventory in 2011. Richard, I can't think of his last name now, is here for the next 5-6 days to inventory our street trees, primarily the street trees. I told him I could deal with the park and the library. I know where we're at on those trees. So he'll inventory all the trees like they did before and give us an assessment of them, the size, the growth, and any problems that he sees. That's a really nice service. That happens with cities under 5,000 for free of charge. That doesn't cost us anything. So I really enjoyed that kind of interaction with those people. Seems like there's one other thing. Oh, South Street. It's
Looks great.
that north side's all the way through now. They did get that poured yesterday. Those guys are good, and they got a lot of courage too. So we have one more 2-block patch that goes in on the south side between Sycamore and Cedar, and then of course the driveways. So that should happen in all likelihood next week. We could see that street opened up maybe in 3 weeks. So I think that's going to be a great addition for about 3,600 or 3,700 cars a day. So, any questions on any of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you much. Floyd, the senior park, fall team.
On the 23rd of August, the cable folded at the senior park. This is another one of those older infrastructure issues like we've had at Walmart. I have to say this much, I'm very grateful to the people of Muscatine for allowing their utility staff to come up and fall locate that for us, because we do not have the capability to do that here for ourselves. Had been for them to show up the same day, I don't know when they would have came. They were able to come the same day and do that for us. We were able to get the park back on. We installed the backup generator out there, and had it been for my staff, it wouldn't have went as smooth as it did. We probably got one of the best crews I've ever worked with. We can do anything as long as we have the staff, the materials, and the money to work with. So I'm very proud of my staff. We all worked together well on that project and got it done and taken care of.
Great.
So, but we're going to be looking at probably doing something with that here in the future. So I don't know when, because there's so many other issues to deal with right now. But and the other good thing though, I was really impressed, or really shocked to see that we made the paper to the editor. John Miller wrote a letter, very nice, thanking us for our hard work and stuff. And then 2 days later in the mail, I got a card from the gathering thanking me, or thanking our department for moving the electric pole in the back there. And I couldn't have done that without Stu's help too. And I appreciate Stu working with us on that as well. Thanks, Stu.
All right. Thank you, Floyd.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chief Gifford?
So just real quick, the speed study that was done by the DOT, I'm not sure who requested it. It was not from my office. It was requested to see if our speed zones all the way on Highway 38. So from the 55 mile an hour to the 45, to the 30, to the 20, and back up. Each section was about an hour and a half long. It was different times of the day. and there was anywhere between 318 to 400 cars in that hour and a half time period. So it's a lot of cars. Just real quick, the south, in the 55 mile an hour, they even tell you if it was 70 and sunny and all that kind of stuff. 55 miles an hour, the average speed was 51 miles an hour. The 45 mile an hour, the average speed was 37.7 miles an hour. The 30 mile an hour, the average speed was 25.5 miles an hour. The 20 miles an hour, this is the only one that was above, the average was above posted, and it was 22.4 miles an hour. So I know people had concerns about that 20 mile an hour zone being a speedway, but the average was only 22.4 miles an hour, and that's about, I can tell you how many cars. 397 vehicles were observed in that zone. The 30 mile an hour going north, 26.4 miles an hour, that was the average. The 30 mile an hour even further, 28.9. 30 mile an hour even further, 29.2. Now we're going north in the 45, it was 41.2. At the 55 mile an hour, it was 45.8. Now there are some higher, like what was the highest recorded? None of these are above 10 miles an hour, above the posted speed, except for one. There was one car, and we missed him. Not get a ticket, but, so the DOT is saying that everything is appropriate. Their recommendation is in the 20 mile an hour zone, they would bump it up to 25 miles an hour. But knowing when the speed study was done, it is up to you guys. You guys, the council, needs to decide, do you want to keep that at 20 miles an hour, or do you want to bump it up to 25 per the DOT recommendation? Either way, they don't care. It's up to you guys. But the speed study was done. We're doing everything right. It's a good, the zones are all appropriate. And if we have any questions, I think Brian has the numbers to contact them. But it was a very in-depth report.
I also have an item on your next agenda where you can formally reply to the DOT as to whether or not you want to leave things as they are or change them as they're recommended.
Yeah, so that's, the speed study is now done, and now with all the work going on, you guys can decide what you want to do.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
All right. Brian, do you want to say anything?
We, Ross and Linda and I went to the Iowa Downtown Conference last week in Waterloo. And they hold a number of workshops with different presenters on downtown problems, downtown ideas, ways to hopefully promote growth. And I think we found the conference to be very interesting. You know, you probably bring back, each of us brings back at least one new idea that you can try to apply to the situation here. And hopefully we've each come up with some different ideas that we can use. Did you want to add anything?
It was a great time. We did get to some good ideas. We'll discuss those later. And but it was a good program. Met a lot of nice people. And good food to eat, except for one day I ordered something that would just set me on fire.
All right, well, good. I want to get on that. All right, so now we have made it down to adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So, second.
Booth first, and Spear with second.
Boots?
Yes.
Davidson?
Yep.
Spear?
Yes.
Hoover?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I didn't